Hi, I'm Behrang Bahromi. I'm an English teacher, an IELTS teacher in particular, and my email address is behrang@hotmail.my, as you see here. My telephone number is 00601724715557. Well, today I'm going to talk about active and passive voices, active structures, passive structures, and why do we need to use passive and active? Well, in the first slide, as you see here, we have why passive. Why do we need to use passives? Well, we make passive statements for the following reasons. 1. The person who did the action is unknown. When, for example, we go, a bank was robbed today, we don't have the slightest idea who robbed the bank, who did it. So who robbed the bank is unknown. That's why we use a passive form. 2. It is not important who did the action. As in this example, we see the check was paid. The important thing here, for me as an example, is my check to be paid. Now the check was paid. The important thing is the check being paid. Now who paid for it, I don't really care, and it's not important at all. So if it is not important who did the action, we use passive. 3. It is obvious who did the action, or the verb and the subject would be the same. The example is on the next page, next slide actually. The building was constructed in 1904. Of course, builders built it. So it would be really funny if I go, the building was constructed in 1904 by the builders. Yeah, of course, builders built it. So why would I say that the builders made the building or built the building? 4. Sometimes someone is trying to hide who did it or who did the action. For example, when we go, Mommy, the glass is broken, we don't really want our mother to understand who broke the glass. So we don't really want to confess that it was me or it was us that broke the glass. So we go, Mommy, the glass is broken. As it is said by a small child who does not want to confess that he broke the glass. Well, here we have the problem here is how should we understand? How should we tell active and passives apart? Yes, how to distinguish active voice from passive voice. Well, our first hint here is active sentences always focus on subject, while in passive structures the focus is on the object. So in active sentences, the focus is on the subject, while in passive structures, the focus is on the object. Passive sentences almost always include a form of be, like be, am, is, are, was, were, and the past participle, the third form of the verb, the past participle form of the verb. Now, let's look at the forms, active and passive forms. Well, first of all, we have simple present tense. The active structure for simple present tense goes subject plus the base form of the verb, shown as V1, plus object. While in passive structures, we bring the object, we actually shift the object from our active sentence and put it in the subject position in our passive sentence, and then plus am, is, are. As you remember, we said that passive structures always include a form of be in them, plus pp. Well, we're having an example here. The example goes, active, hurricanes destroy a great deal of property each year. Now in our passive statement we see, well, I better start with, look, here, hurricanes is the subject of our sentence. Destroy is the base form of the verb. a great deal of property is our actually object, and each year is our time expression here. So making this simple present tense active sentence to passive, we have to find the object and put it in the position of the subject. So what was the object? As I said, this is subject, destroy is our object, a great deal of property is our object. Subject, verb, object. Okay, now object comes here, a great deal of property, am is are, form of be, is, why is, why not am, why not are? Well, it's is because a great deal of property is like it, and the tense of this sentence is simple present, so we use is. Destroyed, the past participle of the verb, by hurricanes each year. Simple past. Well, the active structure goes subject plus V2 stands for the second, like the past form of the verbs, okay, plus object, subject plus V2 plus object. And here we have object plus was and verb because it's past, simple past, plus past participle. Look at the example here. The tornado destroyed 30 houses. Well, first step, what's the tense in this sentence? It's simple past tense because of ed here. The past form of the verb shows that. 30 houses is our object and the tornado is our subject. So we don't have nothing to do with the tornado here. And first of all, we pick our object, bring it to the beginning of the sentence in passive. 30 houses. Now, houses is a plural noun, so between was and were, we'll choose were, destroyed as PP by the tornado. Next, present continuous. Active structure in present continuous is like subject, am, is, are, plus verb, plus ing, and finally object. While in passive, we have object, plus am, is, are, plus being, plus pp. The example here shows the committee is considering several new proposals. Passive structures becomes several new proposals are being considered by the committee. Past continuous. Well, in past continuous, we have subject plus was, were, plus ing form of the verb plus object. In the passive structure here, we have object plus was, were, was or were, plus being plus pp. As an example here, the boy was throwing the ball. Passive becomes the ball was being thrown by the boy. Present perfect. Subject plus have, has, plus pp plus object in the active structure. Object plus have or has plus been plus pp in the passive part. So the example goes, the company has ordered some new equipment. Passive, some new equipment has been ordered by the company. Past perfect now. Subject had pp plus object is our structure in active, while object had been pp is the structure for passive in past perfect. So the example here goes, the boy had thrown the ball, while in passive we have the ball had been thrown by the boy. As you can see, had, been, and the past participle of the verb threw is thrown. Future passive. The active structure in the future goes subject plus will plus the base form of the verb shown as V1 plus object, and in passive we have object plus will plus be plus pp. While in the active part we go, the boy will throw the ball, and in the passive sentence we have the ball will be thrown by the boy. Yes, here we go for modal perfects. The active structure is subject plus modal plus have plus PP plus object. And the passive, we have object plus modal plus have been plus PP. The example goes, SB is the contracted form for somebody. Somebody should have called the doctor this morning. The passive becomes, however, it must be capital T. The doctor should have been called by somebody this morning. And that's modal perfects. And here we have modals, simple modals. Subject plus modal plus verb 1 or V1, which is the base form of the verb, the root form of the verb, plus object. While here in passive part we have object plus modal plus be plus PP. The example is, the manager should sign these contracts today. Passive, these contracts should be signed by the manager today. Imperatives. Now, imperatives are those statements that usually make a request or give orders. Like when we say, let's go, or let's open the door, close the window, and sentences like that. Active goes subject, most often plus preposition and then object, while in passive we have let plus object plus be and finally PP. Look at this example here. Look at the picture. In the passive structure we have let the picture be looked at. So look at a picture as an imperative sentence becomes let the picture be looked at. Well, sometimes our active sentence is an imperative sentence, is a question form starting with WH, who. If you have that sort of sentence, you're actually going to substitute who with actually by whom, and then plus be, object, and PP. Look at this example. Who punished him? Who punished him? This is an active sentence. Who punished him? In passive, we go by whom was he punished? Why do we use was? Because the structure shows that the active sentence is in past tense. It's in simple past tense. ED here proves that. Then after who, we definitely need the third person like is or was. So between is or was, I have to choose was because it's past. It's not simple present. So I could say is. By whom was he punished? Now sometimes we have whom as in the beginning of the sentences in our active structures. So whom should change to who plus be and finally PP. Who did you meet? It's simple past tense and it's an imperative sentence starting by whom changes to who was met in passive. So who did you meet? Who was met? Now gerund. Now gerunds are well, actually in another unit, in another chapter, we'll definitely talk about gerunds and participles in details. But here, just to talk a bit about gerunds. Gerunds are words. They're words that look like verbs but act like nouns. So as you see in this example, taking, for example, it looks like, well, in the first sight you may think that this is the verb, but it's not the verb. It just looks like a verb but acts like a noun. But anyhow, when in your active structure you have gerund, in passive you're going to have being plus PP. Look at this example to understand it better. I remember my father taking me to the zoo. Passive structure becomes I remember being taken to the zoo by my father. That's for gerund. Multi-word verbs. Now, if the verb in active sentence includes a preposition, we are not allowed to omit that preposition in passive form. Like here, look at this verb, play. What do we have after play? We have preposition with. So if this says, if in your active structure you have a verb plus preposition, in the passive structure you're not allowed to omit them. They should be close to each other. So when we go, he played with cards, in the passive form we have to go, cards were played with. Played with, played with, not separated. I must write to him becomes he must be written to. Write to, written to. Now, make when it means force. I repeat, make only when it means force. See here, help plus infinitive. If in passive form two verbs happen to immediately follow one another, a preposition such as to will be essential, except for let, because let has no passive form, so we have to use a passive form of allow, permit, or give permission. In case our verb is let. Look at these examples here. Active goes, he made me work. Made here means for. It actually means for. So I was made to work is the passive. So when I go, he made me work, means he enforced me to work. So in the passive structure I go, I was made to work. I put a preposition here. And sometimes, yeah, as I told you, if the verb is let, because there is no passive form for the verb let, we can't just add a preposition like to and finish it. No, we kind of have to put a form of allow, permit, or give permission instead of that. So I was allowed, or I was permitted, or I was given permission to leave. Intransitive verbs. Verbs with no direct object, we call them intransitive verbs. Verbs with no direct object or direct objects, intransitive verbs, cannot be used in the passive. The post has been arrived. Passive, it's definitely wrong. You'd better go, the post has arrived. You should use the active form for actually the verb arrive, because it's an intransitive verb. Now sometimes we have a verb with two objects. Verbs with two objects, one direct object and one indirect object. Some verbs have two objects. For example, the manager offered the customer a refund. Either object can be the subject of the passive verb. What does it mean? We can go, the customer was offered a refund, as well as a refund was offered to the customer. Note that if the object of the passive verb is the indirect object of the active verb, the customer here, it is usually introduced with a preposition. For example, to the customer, as you see here, to the customer. Well, our next topic is he, it was said. He was said, or it was said. When we're reporting speech, for example, the press said he was innocent, and we don't want to mention the person whose words are being reported, or we want to describe an impersonal or general feeling, we can use a passive form of the reporting verb. These are two patterns here, you see. Subject plus passive verb plus to and infinitive. Like when we go, he was said to be innocent, or the second form is It plus passive verb plus that clause. As we have, it was said that he was innocent in this example. Now, here we use the same pattern with it when reporting decisions and general feelings. For example, we go, it was decided, it was agreed, or it was felt that it would be too costly to take the case to trial. So that was our feeling, that was our decision not to take the case to the trial. Why? Because it was decided, agreed, or felt it would be too costly. We use these passive patterns as an alternative to using an empty subject like they. They said he was innocent. What do I mean by an empty subject like they? Well, they here doesn't refer to actually a certain group of people. It's actually people in general. You don't really know. When I say they said, you don't really understand. You can't really tell who do I mean by these they. That's why we say empty subject like they. Oops, sorry. Yeah. So here we have verbs not used in the passive. Some verbs are not supposed to be used in the passive. Certain verbs describing states, we call them stative verbs, such as have, when it means own, be, belong, lack, resemble, and seem, cannot be made passive. So it is going to be a mistake if I say a Ferrari is had by John, because had, or actually which is the past form of have, is referring to possession, own here. So we can't say that. We can't say a Ferrari is had by John. We should say John has a Ferrari. Or here, these verbs cannot be used in the passive even when they describe an action actually. Lunch is being had by John. Lunch is being had by John? That's stupid. We should say John's having lunch. John is having lunch. But the passive can describe a state which is the result of an action. The meaning is similar to an ed participle adjective. For that, you have to refer to 14.2a. He went to the payphone to make a call, but the phone was broken. Somebody had already broken the phone. It wasn't a broken phone. Verbs followed by to plus infinitive usually cannot be made passive. When we go, your questions are refused to answer, it's definitely wrong. Verbs followed by to plus infinitive usually cannot be made passive. Can't make it passive. Verbs followed by to, verb followed by to plus infinitive cannot be passive. So I refuse to answer your question. You can't say your questions are refused to answer. No, you should go, I refuse to answer your questions. Verbs are wanting and liking. For example, want, love, hate, plus object and infinitive cannot be made passive. So it's a mistake if I say he was wanted to leave. No, you should go, she wanted him to leave. You can't make it passive. Passives with get. In informal English, get can be used as an alternative to be in passive forms which describe actions. We often use get to describe an unusual or unexpected action. For example, when I go, how did he get hurt? It means, how was he hurt? Or when I go, his hand got trapped into the car door, it means his hand was trapped. Okay, so we cannot use get to describe states. This is a very, very important hint here. We cannot use get to describe states. All right, so as an example here, it would be a silly mistake if you say that house gets owned by my uncle. No, we should go that house is owned by my uncle, which is a state. So describing states, do not use get, passive. Well, here I have prepared some questions for you. So if you have actually learned whatever I said earlier, you should be able to answer these questions. Well, actually, I promise you to come up with the answers to these questions in the coming videos. But for the time being, I just read the questions for you. Well, here you have to make these sentences passive. So they're all active, you have to make them passive. 1. I can answer this question. 2. He must prepare for his English test. 3. The kids need not to buy bread. 4. Has anyone done this already? 5. Someone must feed the cat. 6. I have already paid for your new bike. And here we have some alternatives, A, B, C, D. 1 goes, is he A, B, B, been, C, being, D, will be arrested as we speak. 2 goes, all these houses will be, are being, has been, or have been neglected for decades. And 3 goes, there's no question that they have been, will be, had been, or will have been delighted when they see her tomorrow. 4 goes, the building would being, has been, or will be left unoccupied since 1950. Question number 5 is, the children are, have, was, or had taken to school by bus every day. And finally, in our last slide, we have question number 8, which goes, how many times have you been, had, be, or have your house broken into? And finally, I'm sorry, you can't come in at the moment, because we have had, will have, had, are having the house decorated right now. Okay guys, I really hope you enjoyed this first video of mine, and I would like to thank you all for watching this video. Thank you very much.